请收看《唯心世界义工利人天》。
慈航为太平，万千万神来朝礼，共传世界永和平。三六天罡南天来，七二天是天心爱。五百尊者土足礼，五三如来生门开。
And Fellini died with in his pocket a piece of paper with an answer he got from the I Ching about the master. You must seek the one who will enlighten you. He is not a guru, nor a priest, nor a sage. He does not intend to enlighten you, and in fact he does not intend to do anything. He burns bright with passion but without intent. Without you he is lost just as you are lost without him. His light dies if you do not reflect it. Your life is dark without his light. And perhaps in the end understood that means the master could not exist outside of him, or perhaps not. Fellini was also asked whether relying on something like the I Ching and divination for solving his problems was not scary. If it were so, he answered, we should avoid falling asleep at night, because this book, in essence, dreams for us. It speaks the same symbolic, mysterious, and indecipherable language of dreams. Therefore, it gives me no disquiet. In fact, it comforts me. It's like knocking at the door of a castle. Now, we can ask whether Fellini, like many Westerners, was not trying to adjust the answers of the I Ching to suit his wishes. It is inevitable, he said, that we tend to pull the interpretation of the hexagrams in our favor. And when the answer clearly runs contrary to what we would have preferred, it triggers, Fellini said, the same mechanism you have toward the bad dream. You think it wasn't aimed at you, but at the one who had slept in that bed before you. Or you end up saying, after all, it is an archaic, obscure book. And sometime he rebelled against the I Ching, but when he told the story of actor Walter Matthau, who was a character played, it's not a real story, it's fictional, and this character was a true believer in the message in Chinese cookies. And one time he rejected the message of the Chinese cookies, but he was proved wrong. Fellini wrote that Confucius himself, on one occasion at least, expressed dissatisfaction with the vagueness of the answer of the I Ching. But Confucian wisdom taught that also you do not reject the advice of the I Ching lightly. I happened once not to accept it, and I tried again to consult it. That's Fellini speaking. Do you know what the new answer was? Hexagram 4, youthful foolishness, which says, I do not seek the young fool seeks me. Consulted the first time, I give response. If somebody questions 2, 3 times, that is importuning. If they become importunate, I give no response. So Fellini said he learned from Bernard that the key to successful life is to regard the I Ching as a friend, Although I joke for Bernard, they were so close, the I Ching was more like a wife. And indeed, Fellini wrote, the I Ching for me is a friend toward whom I feel esteem, respect, and sometimes genuine wonder. I might add that what I have found is that his answers become all the more pertinent, the more sincere the questions are, and the person asking them puts himself in a condition of humility to receive help. So the I Ching, Fellini says, is called the Book of Changes because it changes you. And in reality, what he found so valuable in the I Ching is the capacity of changing your life. But then, quite surprisingly, he said that for him, I Ching reminded him of Naples, where people give very serious answers, but they always do it jokingly. So he found the I Ching also a sort of a trickster in the Neapolitan style of Pulcinella, the Napolitan mask you see here. And he concluded towards the end of his life that a Napolitan could have written the I Ching. I mean, seriously. Only they have the same tolerance and understanding, the same wisdom and irony, the sense of drama, but the need to endure it with jest. And they are similarly able to change your perspective, your point of view. Think of how they react when faced with a long, interminable speech. They raise their hand, rotating it, and they say only one word in Napolitan, "Embe, so what?" So to avoid having the same reaction from my audience, I will simply stop at that. Thank you.
One of the most delightful things about conferences like this is that you are brought together with people that you would otherwise not meet and have never met, and all of a sudden you're having conversations with them on deep topics. I have never met Professor Bikir, but I happily turn the podium over to him right now to learn. You've got the most fascinating title for this paper.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming me today here, for giving me the opportunity to present this paper that I've published in September, last September. Thank you for this organization and giving me this opportunity. So how do I switch the slide? I press here? Okay. Next page is here, all right. So my talk today will be about, as the title indicates, wandering the diviner's path. So it's all about how I found my PhD dissertation subject 10 years ago. I started to learn divination here in Taiwan. And at this period, I was starting to do a PhD dissertation about the history of the Song dynasty, and more precisely, the history of divination practices. And so I was before in Taiwan for almost 5 years, and I started to, for my first year of PhD, I started to gather documents, and I have met a master in Kaohsiung who wanted to teach me I Ching divination. But at this time, I was very much involved with the academia, and well, in France, it's not very well perceived if you are a PhD student and you start to learn divination. And people will start to like look at you with your very critical sense. Are you okay? Do you really believe in this stuff? My professors told me, like, Radu, you should never talk about this to anyone, but I still was very curious, and I did continue learning with this master. So today I will talk about what happened in this process of learning divination when I was a PhD student, and how these seemingly contradictory forms of knowledge could become intertwined and actually help each other. So in the first part of this learning process, I was wondering, does my belief in esotericism constitute an hindrance, an obstacle to my academic research? So I was starting to conceptualize this work, which helped me produce a paper. As you can see, it took me around 8-9 years to write this paper. It was very long. It took me a very long time to mature it. So I used what we call the perennialistic scholarship. So perennialism, it's all about, in a nutshell, scholars who consider that in the history of religion, all religions comes from a unique tradition, which they call the Sophia Perennis. So we have Huxley, for instance, Katzinger, Chouan, and René Guénon, who was one of the major authors of this tradition. And I was also wondering about the paradox of the Enlightenment, because, for instance, as I said, in France, the scholarship today is very much critical about this belief. So they will say of themselves, like, present themselves very critical and rationalistic. So it's hard to introduce this type of personal belief in your field of research. Like, they will automatically, you will be judged as kind of losing the critical distance with what you study. And I was quite amazed at this paradox, because not so long ago we had scholars and scientific authors such as Emanuel Swedenborg, who produced a huge amount of knowledge about engineering and mathematics and science and geology. And he also was a seer who could travel to the invisible world. He went to heaven and he wrote down a book called Arcana Celestia. Balzac was also a very interesting author who wrote a lot about these topics. And Pierre and Marie Curie were great scientists, but they are also involved with Spiritism. So this is the academic background. In the sinologic field, I use Schipper, Stéphanie Homola, who has published recently her work, and also Catherine Despeux. And so what I try to do is go behind this topic of belief and disbelief. So many people will ask me, do I really believe or disbelieve in the I Ching? Does it really work? Is it just a coincidence if sometimes the hexagrams are correct? So my answer will be that we should go beyond the topic of belief and disbelief and question the mental landscape. Most and foremost, question the mental landscape of which the I Ching can bring to us. And also consider the fact that in the history of religion in China, the most important aspect is actually efficacy or efficiency. Like, if it works, then why not use it? So that's one of the main aspects in those magical practices is efficacy. And another, before I start with the history of my master, another important aspect of this talk would be my own subjectivity, which I'm aware of. And in fact, that's all what this paper is about, is how I perceive this process. So Liang Yilong, that was his name. I met him in 2016. I was heading to the Foguangshan Monastery for a summer retreat. And I was late to 2 days, one day late, just like yesterday I was late to this conference. I was also late. That's a bad habit that I have for a long time now. And so I met him in a cab. He was a taxi driver in Foguangshan. So he picked me up at the Gautier station. And we started having a conversation, and I talked to him about my interest in divination. I was starting this PhD, and said, "Oh, you know, you should." I was a former Dao Shi. I was a former. Oh wow, a taxi driver being the Dao Shi, incredible. And we started engaging in conversation, and said, "You know, I met him 1 or 2 days afterwards, and from Guangshan he said, you know, in 3 years, I've produced an hexagrams, and I know that in 3 years I will pass away. And unfortunately, my children, they don't have any interest in divination. So I was listening, what? You will pass away in 3 years? Like, I was 24 years at the time, and like he was able to like straightforward talk about all these problems about life and death, and it was quite shocking to me at the time. He said, yeah, he continued like, my kids, they have no interest in divination, so come here, and I will teach you what I can. So that interaction lasted for about 1 year. I started seeing him in Kaohsiung, and then I went back to Taipei. I was at the Zhongyan at the time, Academia Sinica, and I continued learning divination. So what I what I noticed in this process was that he used storytelling, the usefulness of storytelling, because I was a foreigner to him, and I represented something which is unknown. So he started building stories like reincarnations, about reincarnation, and making me seemingly more Chinese to him. And another important aspect, like when he practiced divination, is the way he transcended the rules, almost transgressing the rules of the I Ching. And I found stories from my research which illustrates this this aspect which transcends time. And I took this story from the Hongmai Zijianzhi, which was written in the 12th century. Unfortunately, the hexagram should be appearing here, but I don't know why. Maybe you can help me. Oh yeah, I could have drawn it here, but anyway. Okay, so this story is about a man from the commandery whose name was Wang Langxian, and he met a master in the mountain, and he studied some months with him. And at the end, I will skip to here when this master told him, okay, your natural gifts now has reached their limit, your limit with me. You can force yourself now. And the master sends Wang away from the mountain. But Wang's knowledge was there already exceptional. And one day, a man involved in a lawsuit over a grave site asked Wang what the decision would be. And Wang obtained the hexagram B, which is this one, and told him the burial mound lacks soil, which is an indication of failure. I will explain what that means. After more than a month, the man in question returned. Wang, who After another consultation, I had obtained the hexagram monk, this one. And he told him, this oracle is not comparable to the previous one. Grass has grown on the grave. Your case will be settled within the day. Shortly afterwards, everything was accomplished just as he had predicted. So what's happening here? Actually, just like Liang Yilong told me, sometimes you don't have to follow the rules. You don't have to follow the book. You just have to follow that instinct that you have. And just, yeah, from your inner feeling, because that's what he called, can I go back? How do I go back? That's what he called the ton. Yeah, the penetration of the, so you permeate this, with your spirit the reality of things, which is found also in the I Ching, the Xi Zi, 感而遂通天下之故. So when you have this Gan feeling, you can enter inside the reasons and the precedents of Tianxia, of the universe. So what happened in this take is very interesting because he doesn't read the lines, he doesn't read the commentaries, he doesn't even care about the figure. Actually, he reads the title, okay, the B, which lacks, the first one lacks soil. So what he's doing is 测字. 测字. He how do you say, analyzes, he makes an analyze of the character by dividing its component. So he says this hexagram here lacks soil because this one and this one produce the word for tomb. And monk, hexagram monk, which Professor Massimo talked to us about in his conference. Monk, now we have the grass, but if you attend to the signs, monk is the word also tomb with grass, with the grass component on the top. So that is how he analyzes the sign. But you cannot produce a knowledge and a manual with this. This rule only applies to the context. It only applies to this context. You cannot systematize these rules. This is how the Gan or the Tong works, actually. So this is how Liang Yilong practiced divination, and that is why what he tried to transmit, it was this Tong, this feeling, more than the bookish knowledge. So this is go with the Xiaoyang, the Xiaoxing part, the inner cultivation part, which to him coincides and is as important as the practice of I Ching itself. So how much time do we have left? 4 minutes, so I will fly through other encounters I have with other masters. Another aspect that I have with my relationship with other masters, other people that I met, is that not everyone implied transmission. Sometimes I encounter problems of domination. This hierarchy of the master who has knowledge and the student who has to just receive and submit himself to the rules, and it was kind of uncomfortable at a period. So we have digital interactions. For instance, I have one with a master called Mr. Chen, and it was the, you know, the Gong'an, the Quan, the Zen Quan stuff, like when you battle with someone, he's using absurd lines to like disturb you. And it still exists, but you can use line or digital tools to continue to have this kind of interaction. So this is one I had. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear very clearly. So I'll just read one line. So we enter in this type of stereotyped conversation, dialogue I had with Mr. Chen. He was also a Dao Shi and a Tibetan Buddhist follower. He mixed the two. So he says, in the last slide, he says, it is karma that allows you to know and not to know. Now it's too strong, and you don't have any means to figure out what you know and what you don't know. So he's saying that I can basically don't know anything, and he's He knows, he has the knowledge. Only Buddhas have this capability. They can use false name, false speech, and false methods to make you cultivate what is right for what is false. And just I found this nice line of humor, say, what you say is false. Which signifies that he has knowledge, but at the same time he's wrong. And what you know is, he continues, what you understand is false, what you not understand is true. And all this dialogue that I have with him on the social media was not about produce any kind of knowledge, but just to have a stereotyped use of the language, which will which will produce a hierarchy. And if you want to enter this type of hierarchy, you have to sort of prove yourself with language mastery and to show the importance of transforming nonsense into a new sense, somehow. So in conclusion, this process of learning brought me friendship and also coercive interactions. It helped me actually to kind of bring new ideas and new concepts in my PhD dissertations and go beyond this duality of believing in esotericism and only do it fully at academic research. I think that two aspects of this knowledge could enrich each other. Those both aspects can enrich each other. And in conclusion, it was certainly a subjective experience, but I think many aspects of it can still be traced to ancient China, and hopefully it will bring some help to new young scholars and other PhD students who are entering this type of interaction. So that's me and Liang in Foguangshan, learning the hexagrams. So I think time now is up. Thank you for listening.